within 10 minutes of downloading Warp and playing around a bit with it, I had completely fallen in love. And to be honest, it caught me a bit off guard. I was surprised because I have seen Warp hyped basically everywhere, especially among people who use Claude Code. And for a long time, I resisted. I think it's partly because I have just, in general, I just have a resistance to potential hype, and also because the features in Warp do feel a little overkill, and in a way they are. But I still find myself continuing to come back to it again and again. So that's why I just wanted to share a bit about what I like about using Warp together with Claude Code for knowledge work. And what Warp is it's a terminal replacement, and it can do a lot. As you can see here, it's marketed as basically a as you can see here, it's marketed basically as an agentic coding platform. You can build, you can code. You can code directly in it with you can code directly in it, and you can access multiple model providers. And for someone like me who's already just happy with the features in Claude Code, it seems like most of that is noise. But there are, in particular, 4 things about Warp that keep me coming back to it. And funny enough, none of these things has anything to do with their AI-related features. All right, so these are the 4 Warp features that keep me coming back. That was stupid. All right, so here are the 4 features I'm going to show you in this video that I really appreciate about Warp that you can't get in the standard terminal app. I'm going to show tab management. So there's more customization available if you have multiple tabs of So there's more customization available in Warp for tabs if you have multiple tabs of the terminal open. There's also this directory picker so that you can switch folders more visually. You can open the Project Explorer in a sidebar so you can see the whole file structure. And then there's also a preview pane where you can actually open the files that you want to work with in the terminal, so you can preview them and even edit them directly in a side pane. All right, let's first talk about tab management. It's a small, but for me, very useful feature. Now what I have up here is just the native Mac terminal. You can see I have 2 tabs up, and the name of the tab does tell me where I am in my file structure, and for example that I have Claude Code spun up in one and I don't have Claude Code spun up in the other one. But I'm not able to, for example, rename this tab because I'm actually in the same folder in both of these tabs and I might be doing 2 different things. And especially when I get up to, I don't normally get more than 3 or 4 tabs, but even when I get up to 2, 3, or 4 tabs, it's nice to know which tab is which. But in the native terminal, you have no control over that. Now, if I just show you, now I have Warp up. And here in Warp, you are able to give your tabs custom names. And you're also able to color code them. I don't use the color coding that much, but it can be really nice. For example, I have a tab that's just running an app that I'm working on, and I just don't give that one a color. So I know that this is just something that's running in the background. It's not something I need to handle. Whereas I have color tabs where I see what I'm working on in one tab, website copy, in another tab I'm working with Claude on making diagrams for Figma for this tutorial, right? And here is where I'm working on the development for my fitness app. So then I know I can very quickly, if I want to check in on one of these, I know where I'm going. All right, next, let's talk about the working directory picker. So stop. Okay, next let's talk about the working directory picker. So if I open here a new tab, I can see where I am, what's my working directory. I'm in this folder that's called Louise, and I can also rename the tab like so. Perfect. So if I click on this, then I can visually navigate through my folder structure. If I prefer, instead of writing a bunch of cd commands or whatever, I can go through all these folders. I can go back up to the parent directory, right? And I can navigate around like this. And the next thing that's and another feature that I really like, which is kind of a cousin of the working directory picker, is you can open a sidebar. You can open your file explorer in the sidebar. Kind of weird. Another thing, blah. Another feature that I think is pretty nice, it's a bit of a cousin of the working directory picker, is that when you're working with Claude Code, for example, here when I was working on these Figma diagrams with Claude Code, you can open your File Explorer in a side panel like this. So now I'm in this folder. This is my sort of AI workspace folder, and I can navigate around everything in my project as I'm chatting here in the terminal with Claude Code. And that saves me from, I'm often opening Obsidian on one side of the screen and the native terminal app on the other side of the screen, so that I can kind of navigate around as I'm working with Claude Code. And so I have a bit more in touch with what we're working on in my project this way. So this is a nice, like a more compact way of seeing what we're working on, seeing the file structure we're working on, while having Claude Code in focus. And just like on a practical level, why that's useful for me is if I want to tag a specific file for Claude to look at, I can promise you I do not have every single file in this workspace memorized, nor do I even always know exactly where it is. And obviously I can kind of tell Claude to poke around. I think it's somewhere in the notes folder, but I can also, quickly go through and say, okay, it's here in inbox, and it's called AI Assistant so and so, and then I can easily tag it in here. And it's the same with if I want Claude to put something in a specific folder, then I can kind of browse around and tell it, okay, well, this belongs in the projects folder, wherever. So just on a practical level, removing friction in my interactions with Claude when I'm asking it to create or read or move files, it helps to have a file explorer up that I can easily reference. All right, and the final feature that I just want to quickly show is that you can view files here within Warp. So if I were to if I go into my files and I open, now I've opened this file and it opens it in the sidebar. And these are some notes that I took on from the Lex Friedman podcast. And you can see here, what we're looking at now is the so-called rendered version. So it's like a preview of the markdown. And you can also see the raw markdown here. And in the rendered version, you can preview and in the rendered version, you can read and preview. So this is great for if I ask Claude to make some edits in a file and I want to check them in a more sort of nice UI rather than in the terminal, or if I want to give some instructions, for example, to Claude that are based on some note I have in my project, and I have the note up while I'm usually using speech to text, and I'm usually talking and dictating to Claude while I have, for example, something up. You can do edits. So in this raw version, you can edit. And I think it's great for like quick edits. If you want to quickly delete something or quickly add something, I wouldn't use this for more extensive editing, but it is nice to have it if I happen to be in a flow with Claude and I just want to change one little thing. I can just always flip over to raw mode and make the change. So these days, after I started using Warp, I would say this screen here is mostly what my setup looks like. Like I will have Warp open with Claude in the terminal, probably 3 to 4 different tabs, one focus task and maybe 3 background tasks that Claude is working on. And then I will probably have the file explorer open and sometimes also the file preview open to collaborate together with Claude on my workspace. I still use Obsidian. I don't see this as a replacement for Obsidian. First and foremost, I will use Obsidian when I need like focus time, when I want to deep dive into content without AI. Believe it or not, there are many, many instances where I don't want Claude to poke its nose into what I'm doing. I just want to have some deep work by myself. And for those instances, I will just open up Obsidian and work just in Obsidian and sort of close everything else down and have nothing else. Obsidian is also great because it's syncing my Kindle highlights and my read later articles and podcast notes, and it has a lot of integrations that I'm using. So this is in no way like a Warp can't be, at least for me in my setup, it can't be a full system that I do all of my work in, but it does limit the context switching for me, especially when I am doing some intensive collaboration together with Claude in my workspace. Because I have tried having Obsidian on one side of my screen and having the terminal open on the other side, and it does work, but it still doesn't feel as integrated as doing this in Warp. I've also tried the terminal plugin in Obsidian, and again, it works, but it still somehow feels heavy to me. I'm not a huge fan of that, and that's why I've gravitated to the Warp setup. It's just so, it feels so easy to open and close the file explorer as needed, open and close these review panes so I can kind of put my focus where it needs to be. So that's a wrap. Those are the 4 features that I'm finding I'm loving most about Warp: tab management, the directory picker, the project explorer, and the file viewer and editor. And as I said, I was a bit surprised that, Warp is very much marketed as an AI powered terminal, and none of these features that I really love are the AI powered variety. But that's just what I find that is most useful for me. I actually anticipated one feature in Warp would be something I would use a lot, and they have the ability to essentially just write in plain text in the terminal what it is you want, and you have an AI agent there that can help you write the right command for what you want to do. And for some people, that actually could be really freeing if you're really new to terminal commands. And I'm fairly new as well. But I found actually, I think I used that feature once since I started using Warp, which surprised me, but I thought I would be using that a lot more. And you do, even with a free plan, you get a certain number of AI credits that you can use for something like that, for writing in plain text and having the agent help you with the commands. But the value in this app for me really is the visual layer, the tabs, navigation, previews, the stuff that makes the terminal feel less isolated from the rest of my environment on my Mac. So if you've been using Claude Code, so if you have been using Claude Code and feel like the native terminal is a weak link in your workflow, then it's possible that Warp can close that gap for you. And the tools like this used to just be for developers, and I'm really seeing day by day how rapidly the gap between technical and non-technical is closing. This is changing. Terminal apps are for normal people too, and I think that's exciting. So I've written a little guide that outlines all the features that I talked about today, and please like and comment and subscribe if you think this has been helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.